everyone and welcome. It's penultimate round time and what a venue to have it at. One of the most incredible ribbons of racetrack on this planet. Mount Panorama sees some of the highest commitment, edge of your seat, bravest driving we will see anywhere in the world. A brilliant place to step close to a title challenge. At the first round of the season, it was all about Williams after a double podium. Wet weather at Zandvoort shifted that towards SimGrid.pro by Vides. But as we head to the land down under, it is control back in Williams with Dara McCormack and Tico van der Velde. Their pathway, though, will not be easy. Pressure from behind and a beast to control over the top again and again and again. The Coach Dave Super Sprint continues here, round 4 or 5. I'm Lewis McGlade, David Christie alongside DC. Great to have you alongside, of course. We love doing this championship, but Barcelona showed a slightly more ugly side of things in that second race. Think we're going to be seeing more of that tonight?
Well, I was hoping that you were just going to go straight into talking about Bathurst and just ignoring Barcelona like it never ever happened. It was a horrible figment of our imagination. Race 1, fantastic. Race 2, never want to see that ever again. It was absolutely horrendous, terrible driving standards. And on the plus side, at least we know that good old Michael Hamlet got to go and have an absolute go at the drivers tonight, because I don't want to be in their shoes getting on the receiving end of that. But look, other than that, one race has been a fantastic championship. As you said, the business end of things, 4 races left to go. Bathurst and Imola, I mean, two of, I would say, possibly the better tracks that we've got in the circulation. Yeah, this is going to be epic stuff.
It really, I mean, for me, we had this discussion before we went on air. For me, Bathurst is number 1 when it comes to racetracks on this planet. It provides such a difficult challenge. I know you're a bit of a Nordschleifer boy yourself, which is fair enough. We'll accept it and we'll move on from that. But there is something about the challenge of Bathurst, about throwing it over the top again and again. Yes, sometimes the racing around here might be a little bit hard to come by. Obviously, you've got the run into Griffin's Bend and then down into the Chase, where you can technically see some moves and stuff. We do typically see them down there, but over the top, we don't really see anything naturally because it's single file. But there's still just an element of just seeing them throwing it inches to the wall. It's good.
It really is, and don't get me wrong, Bathurst is still a fantastic track. What I prefer though is like seeing those tracks like Donington, where you can line cars up and it's a proper like fight, rather than waiting for someone to have an accident or seeing these unfortunate accidents happening. How many times, Lewis, have we seen it on the run through the Chase and a car decides at the last minute it's going to make a move, and then suddenly 2-3 cars sneak through because of that. But for their own safety, a lot of these cars have to stick in line. They have to be patient, and they have to just, what we say up here in Scotland, gang canny. You have to take it easy going round the Mount Panorama circuit, because it has absolutely no chill whatsoever. It will strike at any point, and we see that so often. 20 minutes into a race, 30 minutes into a race, and then suddenly out of absolutely nowhere you're backwards over Skyline.
I think this is where the critical feature of making sure you get your weekend or midweek. We're still midweek. It's fine. Off to a good start is qualifying, and I think of all of the circuits that we've got on the calendar, maybe Zandvoort qualifying was more important because it is a very tricky beast to overtake at. But obviously the weather conditions there, fair enough. Here though, as we head into that qualifying session, qualifying around here is king. Making sure you get it right, it is paramount to a good evening's racing. If you get it wrong, if you start 20th or so, fair enough, you might be able to make your way up the order inside that all-important top 10 for the reverse grid in race 2. But it's not a position I would want to be in.
Definitely not, because it's different being in P1, because you've got the least chance of getting nerfed from a car from behind, whereas if you're in P2, you've got about 20 other cars that are coming hurtling towards you into turn 1, or even worse, up into turn 2. I would rather be in front, but we've seen it so often through this championship, Lewis. The margins are so small that it is such a feat for them to actually do.
Yeah, like you say, we're still even around here where driver skill does prevail. That's not like a dig at anyone, but when you're talking of a circuit where driver does really make a difference, the thing is we still typically talk of the less than a tenth for pole position. If we see it over that, then it is a quality lap time from whoever grabs that pole position. Know that the likes of James Baldwin goes very well around here. We've seen that before in the very recent past within the VCO Esports Racing World Cup when they came in for the first day, obviously back in January. But this is a very different kettle of fish taking on this. Obviously, we know how the evening's going to work. Just to explain it to you, we'll do this qualifying. We then head into a 60-minute race where we have a driver swap halfway through the race. I said before it was Dara McCormack and Tinko van der Velde who are leading the championship, because they're two driver teams. Over the 60-minute races, there'll be a pit window in the middle of the race where the drivers will switch, and then you get inside the top 10, you get a top 10 reverse grid, and we do it all over again. 2 races, 2 hours of racing. It's a good evening of entertainment, at least, at the bare minimum. Even despite how frustrating Barcelona was, it was entertaining is a word you could use. You couldn't say it was boring.
No, you definitely couldn't say that it was boring. It was a fantastic outing, but you know, the drivers can do much better. That's the key point of it, and hopefully we can put that behind us, and hopefully, you know, that's it, done and dusted. We're going to get a brilliant outing tonight as qualified underway. But Lewis, one of the other things, I pretty much have to apologise to the entire SimGrid's viewing community and pretty much every other ACC event that I've done that's involved Bathurst, because like many of us commentators, I have to rely on the circuit maps that circulate online to do my research and stuff like that. And I had no idea until about maybe 2 months ago that 90% of the circuit maps on Bathurst are wrong. I didn't realise that, and it was a very frustrated Australian that was watching that actually pointed it out, because on the majority of the maps that we've got here, turn 2 is pointed out as Quarry Bend, and it's Griffin's.
It is Griffin.
So
yes.
yeah, so I didn't realise that, but yeah, I shall not be making that mistake now, and I'm getting that out there early so that that is nice and clear there.
Yeah, I think so. Quarry is the one that's actually it's not really a corner that anyone really says anything about, because it's not really one of the names that you sort of
miss it.
Yeah, it's completely flat. It's a right hand kick. It's the one straight after the cutting. That one I think is the one that's technically Quarry, but no one calls it. Like I say, it's as long as you're saying, you know, Griffins, then the cutting, and then, you know, going up over all the Park, Solomon Park, McPhillamy, and that lot, and then down Skylight. Oh, so even as I'm saying it, I'm getting excited. What a circuit!
Just to say as well, Thiago Silva in the
even
chat
the one on
is asking
Wikipedia
about,
says Quarry
Boothby and
is turn 2.
Jardier missing tonight. Yeah, that's right. We did see Jardier last night in one of the other channels, and he's saying that he is still very unwell, still on the mend. So obviously we send our best wishes on Jardier getting recovered as quickly as possibly can. But yeah, he's still not feeling well enough to compete just now. So yeah, a bit of a shame. And also the three Dalkin community of Dan King and Jan Willem van Ommen in that Aston Martin, they are not going to be taking part in this race tonight either.
That's just how it goes. Unfortunately, as we focus on Robbie Stapleford, who we kind of knew was joining the BMW G2 Esports group, but the posts were all made today to really sort of officialise all of that, along with an engineer he's very fond of working with in the form of Nick Dealey, who's joined the group. Of course, the two working together in the I'm actually going to say it, the vastly superior Rocket Sim Sport. I'm allowed to say it's fine. No, it's fine. Of course, we play around with it, but it's kind of one of those important things where we don't really think about your drivers and stuff. You like to team up with the same drivers time and time again, but sometimes that driver-engineer dynamic, when you move to a different team, you kind of want to bring that along with you. We see it in like Formula 1 and such, but it's nice to see it actually in the sim racing world for once.
Yeah, it's a great partnership, and Robbie, an unbelievable talent. I've seen him for the best part of a year now in some of the community races where he just had unbelievable skill. I don't know if you caught that earlier on today, Lewis. Maybe it was today or yesterday, but BMW G2 Esports putting out that video on social media about sim racing is boring / not boring. I tell you what, that watching that as like somebody else who's been in esports of like FPS games like CS:GO, and seeing the production values of that, seeing that stuff come into ACC, into sim racing, yeah, that makes me very, very excited. And great to see a little cameo from Robbie in there as well. But yeah, look, he is a very strong talent. Big chance to do some really, really heavy results tonight. But as you said, it's with these drivers changing over and going into different franchises, going into different marques and different teams, the setup changes as well. The driver, yes, is one part of that little key there, and it's the thing that a lot of people will see on track. Will see like a really fast driver, but what they don't put together is maybe the relationship, as you pointed out, with the engineers behind the scenes, and with the it's mad to think that sim racing though has got so much going on behind the scenes. Like you said, the engineers, you've got nutritionists involved now as well, physical training. It's just a mad world, and all we see is the tip of the iceberg in terms of the drivers.
Yeah, it's like I say, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes, even when it comes to practice and everything. It is maddening, and it is, as much as it's a point that we have hammered home on broadcast time and time again, it is why we are in the commentary booth and not driving, because I've tried that. I've tried the whole living my life but one practice lap at a time, and it's hard work. That is a hard life. Either way, focusing on the session that we have at hand, it's the SimWed.Pro by Vides car that is on pole position, about half a tenth clear of James Baldwin. Now, that's the car that was leading the championship going into Barcelona, but terrible round at Barcelona. 20th and 24th place for the number 41. Drops them down the championship. They're now about 30 points off of the Williams Esports team. They are certainly not out of it, certainly not with 4 races to go in a championship like this. The Veloce car that's in second position, kind of one of those things that we don't really expect when it comes to Veloce. And yes, of course, driving changes and such. But Veloce, they are 8th in the championship. They did take that race win at Barcelona, but they have finished outside of the top 10, the top 15. Let's call it that. On 3 occasions, and they finished inside the top 10 on another 3 occasions. So they're 50-50 with their top 10 ratio, which is not what we would expect from a team of that class.
It really, really isn't, and it's a shame to see not getting the results that we'd expect. But I mean, you could say that, Lewis, about so many of the other teams that are in this championship. It's kind of a cool thing where we've got all these teams in where they've almost got a reputation, and we've got certain expectations. We see Griphack's Engineering, we know they're going to be up in the up towards the front, or we see the SimWed.Pro by Vides, we know that they're going to be strong contenders just by the name of the team. We've got these expectations set, and the problem is that if you've not got the job done by by week 2 or week 3, you've almost got no chance, because of the level of outrageous talent we've got on display here. You know, you're not going to get a team that's going to be winning like 6 races in a row with this. So to get that level of points advantage, that has to be done nice and early. And realistically, if you've not got if you're not up the top by round 3, I would say you've got very, very slim chances of actually being able to compete for that.
Well, to hammer that point home as we focus on James Baldwin coming down into the dipper to round out this lap over the mountain section before he heads down onto the Comrade Straight. To hammer that point home, we've had 6 races. We have had 6 different winners, 5 different manufacturers. And that was the thing that I was focusing on quite a bit in Barcelona, because we actually had 5 different manufacturers win in 5 consecutive races, which was broken tragically in our final race. Obviously, when I think it was a Merc that won again, the S&P Merc that became another Mercedes to win a race. But realistically speaking, it's been wide open, and we know that's the case here in the SimGrid. It is a wide open series. Every time we go racing, everything is just completely crazy. Dara McCormack, though, see that time, 2 minute 0.917. 4 minutes left on the clock. Championship leader up onto pole position. Couldn't write it.
Well, that's the fun thing about these races and these qualifying sessions, isn't it, Lewis? The fact that we get, say, 15 minutes and we get 8 minutes into it or 9 minutes into it, and then all hell breaks loose, it seems like, for the final 5 minutes. But, I mean, how have we got, again, 18 cars within 1 second? It's, and I know you mentioned about you taking part in sim racing as well, and you've got a little bit more, well, slightly a lot more actually pace than me. But you know, as someone that's not on the same page as these guys here, I'd be probably about 3-4 seconds off. I look at this and it just, you know, I see nothing but excitement when I see something like that, because I'm like, oh my god, that's 20 cars nearly within a second. You know, how close are they on pace wise? But that means that surely we're going to lead to some very, very edgy, punchy, door-banging racing. But at Bathurst, they cannot afford to have that. And I think especially with the penalties that we've got, you know, over from the last one, they can't afford that. They can't afford to put a finger on any other cars here.
Yeah, just to clarify, by the way, whilst we'll roll down, we'll go through which cars this applies to after qualifying, but one of them is the Veloce car. James Baldwin has breached his 3 licence points and has a 15-second time penalty in the race, along with Kamenev and Barrier. We'll go through that in a moment as we watch the lap finish from Abelard Simware.pro by Vides, that number 41. They've had 2 pole positions in the 42, but the 41 not so much. What a stonking lap time here. A 2 minute 0.5. That is incredible. I doubt anyone can get anywhere near that lap time. That is superb. Just absolutely smashed it over the top. And the Merc goes on to pole. It's a Merc 1-2-3, but by dominant fashion, Simware.pro.
Well, that now is what's that? Three cars in the 2 minute mark now. I mean, that is incredible pace there from the Merc. So obviously, I think we're discovering at a very early stage, Lewis, what car has the straight line pace and what car has the single lap pace. But whether or not that's going to translate into a dominant race, I don't think so, because I always find the Merc to be like the Audi, or the original Audi that was in the sim, very, very unstable. You know, that rear end likes to snap itself out at the most inopportune times, but we know that 41 team is no slouch. And yet again, Simware.pro by Vides showing exactly why they've got the reputation that they have.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, their consistency has been incredible. Their teammate, the 42, which is down in 13th spot, they've had 3 second place finishes this season, but then 2 DNFs and the 27th place to go with it. That's why they're a bit further down, but it is 2 pole positions for the number 42. We'll focus on Robbie Stapleford for the BMW G2 Esports. Saw him throwing it over the top, really pushing it through McPhillamy and then down through Skyline, of course. He is a couple of tenths up on this lap, so we'll see if he can improve his position at the moment. Got to get through that final corner. It is very, very tricky, very easy to get on wrong. What does Robbie Stapleford do? Goes up into 3rd and removes at least some of that Merc dominance.
Well, there we go. So fighting into that 3rd position. So it's going to be a BMW Team G2 Esports versus Williams Mercedes fight really going on as soon as we go. The checker flag flies for qualifying, so it's the cars that are already on lap now that will be allowed to finish it off. Here's Valentin Barrier, who I saw out in action last night for the Jardier community team, goes across the line and can improve P15 for Valentin Barrier there. So again, I mean, qualifying done and dusted. Vyacheslav Abeladze, that massively caught me by surprise. I wasn't expecting something that fast in this heat. 35 degrees, it's going down slightly actually, 34 degrees air temperature, 45 degrees track temperature. Those tyres must be like bubblegum on this circuit.
Well, it's toasty, Bathurst. It's a bit of a hot track, so makes kind of sense, being in Australia and such. It does get a little bit tricky. It's one of the main features of the circuit. A little bit of a mistake there coming down into Forest Elbow from Novikov. Just had a little second bite at it on the braking. It's very easy to sort of, as you're tapping the brakes, to potentially even get close to locking in front of the ABS and stuff, but losing the rear end a little bit as the weight transfer, sometimes understeering, not slowing down enough. It's very, very tricky through Forest Elbow. We'll see the Bentley roll its way through the chase and then on its run up the hill. Like I said, second place 3 times in this season so far. No victory. That's been a victory for the Bentley, of course, in the Jardier Community Car, which is another one of those teams that's going to be facing a penalty for breaching licence points. It was on 3 licence points, so it's 15-second time penalty. Novikov out of the final corner for the SimGrid.Pro Vides, the number 42, just improved to 12th place, but that's all they get. Had a couple of pole positions with the 42, not so today, but let's be honest, their teammates, they have stolen the show.
I'm just looking at that now, and unbelievably, that is 6 Mercedes in the top 10. As I say, I think it's safe to say what car really enjoys the twists and turns here at Bathurst. I think we also have to say a huge congratulations not only to James Baldwin, but Robbie Stapleford getting those cars in 3rd and 4th position when everybody else in those same cars in the McLaren and the BMW outside of the top 10 and really struggling to make any inroads whatsoever. In fact, James Baldwin along with Felix aren't in the top 10, but yeah, it's difficult to look anything past a Mercedes certainly for this first race here.
That's where I'd say there's a little bit of a surprise. Down in about 8th position is the 449 Yazheat Pirelli. Of course, that one with Statsenko and Malinovsky. It's the Yazheat car that's fighting for the championship. We'll see them all gridded up. You can see them from left to right as we'll roll down the order. Of course, on the left-hand side is that SimWare.Pro. Oh, sorry, no, it's not. We've got Veloce alongside here in the 3rd spot. So that was the R8G car. SimWare.Pro a bit further ahead of that. Isaac Kreisel potentially. We'll see if Robbie Stapleford jumps in behind the G2 cars. We'll roll down this order. Remember that the number 28 Veloce, that is a car that has a penalty. It's got for breaching the license points. Cars 28, 44 and 81 all have a 15-second time penalty in this race. Of course, the 28 is the Veloce car, the 44 is the Jardier Community car, and the 81 is the SMP Racing Esports car. They've all got the 15-second time penalty. This is, of course, to do with the breaching of the license limits. Essentially, every time you get a license point, once you go above 2, you start accruing penalties for the next round, whether it's a qualifying ban, whether it's a 15-second time penalty like this. All kind of depends on how many license points you are over it. We've kind of discussed this at length beforehand. I think it's a fine system. Some of the drivers, might disagree. Some might agree. The point is that they're trying something different to counter some of the driving standards, especially what we had back in Barcelona.
Just getting PTSD every time you mention the word.
No, I'm going to keep bringing it up, mate.
Oh, please, no, don't. I need to be able to sleep tonight. It's, but I mean, ironically, out of all the places, I mean, Barcelona is one of the tracks that you would never have imagined that happening at, because likes of Bathurst, it's incredibly tight. You've got walls either side. Barcelona is quite open. There's a lot of runoff area, and it was just absolute madness. I bet we get a fairly. No, I don't even want to say that. I was going to say,
yeah, careful, mate.
Fairly more civilized, but then there's also the unbelievable risk of getting like the biggest pileup in sim racing history happening at the top of Skyline. So let's see what happens. I think there's too much to lose for a lot of these drivers, so I think they'll be just maybe dialing it in a little bit for the first 10-15 minutes of this race.
You've got to at Bathurst. You can't take any major risk, especially for those that are sort of inside that top 10. Again, remember that the race 2 grid is set from the race 1 finishing results with the top 10 reverse, so it's critical to be inside that top 10. I think you might see 10th place Samir Abrami, who's sat there at the moment in 10th place, might be sat there looking at the Sim Racing Masterclass car, the SimWare.Pro by Vides, number 42, looking at those two behind and thinking, Well, this is going to be stressful, isn't it? I don't think there's any other way that you can put it as we start rolling here at Bathurst and getting ready for the 1 hour race. Of course, again, pit stops our way through. Tyres, typically, we wouldn't say is particularly difficult. Of course, we know how this works, that there is a mandatory tyre switch within the first race and fuel within the first race, but race 2 does work slightly differently. We don't have that. They've got to do the entire race on the single set of tyres. If the temperatures are like this, to be fair, it shouldn't be a major problem, but it is a bit hot.
It's a bit cosy, but it is getting cooler. It was 45 degrees track temperature, now down to a positively chilly 42. I'd be absolutely useless at that sort of temperature, but yeah, I don't know. See, I think maybe that's why the Mercs are so strong here. I wonder if that extra grip is really helping them settle in to get that traction down and get themselves around the track. But we might see it as if it cools down significantly, the McLaren's coming into it a little bit more. But remember also, it's 1 lap qualifying pace, so yes, that can tell us so much. But again, Lewis, both you and I have commentated on so many races where we've seen, you know, what we look like a sure deal in qualifying being absolutely unravelled in race pace, or whether or not it's just through strategy or whatever. What I would say is the Mercs are massively heavier on their tyres than almost any other car out there, so that might be a factor towards the end of the stint. But for just now, I think they should be able to try and get themselves a little bit of a gap.
Now, that Veloce of James Baldwin obviously has that penalty. Do you think there's much hope of them scooping a top 10 here? That's surely got to be the goal, is to get a top 10 and get the reverse grid.
They will get a top 10, absolutely guaranteed. I mean, as long as they don't get destroyed from a car behind or get an accident of their own making, if they are on the track, they will 100% get a top 10. The pace of both of the drivers in that car is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the thing is as well, is that, you know, we've seen the fact that James Baldwin as well, we've seen him numerous times cutting through the field. We've seen also Isaac Gilliason as well. Just when you put them up against the wall, how many times again, you know, you put them down out the top 15, out the top 20, and then suddenly 20 minutes later you're like, wait, how did they get back in? What's happened? So it's either fortuitous luck or amazing pit stop recovery strategy. Whatever it is they do, they get themselves out of jail so quickly and so flawlessly. Yeah, 100%. If they are still going by the end of this race, they will be in the top 10.
Well, we've got a few cars obviously up the order that are trying to look for their first victory within the Coach Dave Super Sprint. To be fair, the SimWare.Pro, surprisingly enough, despite being well in contention for this championship, despite having a bad round the past zone and no race victories there, named that R8G car, no victory. Of course, we know James Baldwin has had a victory in the 28 alongside Eamon Murphy, the 62 of the BMW G2 Esports. We don't really know what to expect from this. They're sort of by themselves. They're the lone BMW on the field as we get ready to go racing here. You can see the number 41 SimWare.Pro R8G alongside Veloce G2, and then focus on your championship leader in 5th position, Dara McCormack. He'll hand over to Tinko van der Velde at some point in this race, but that car is going to be very racy indeed. But like you say, heavy tyre wear might well be the issue in such a hot environment. Well, it's time, penultimate round time, 4 races left to go here in the Coach Dave Super Sprint. Race number 1 here at Bathurst, and we'll see what Abelards can do from that pole position on the run down to Hell Corner. We'll go green at Bathurst, and the land down under we're on board with James Baldwin, as you can see already bolting from the front of the grid. Abelards got a clear launch down to turn 1. It wasn't a particularly great one from the group behind. A little bit of contact at the back. Oh, Robbie Stableford's been sent around, manages to pick it up from the SMP car. I don't know how he's still alive. Dara McCormack really did help out in there. The Yazzie Pirelli car on the right hand side of shot as Robbie Stableford just squeezing to the outside. Hettich, oh, it's a bit kind. Calm it down, boys, calm it down. We got carnage in the background because no one has spatial awareness. It is massive in the background, and unfortunately, Arca brakes are in full effect.
Wow, that is absolutely unbelievable. And again, as a commentator, we get the joyous ability to cast our opinions, because that's what they are. For me, that was absolutely Robbie Stapleford's fault, 100%. He forced that car out wide. The car didn't have any. The car that was on the left-hand side. He forced that out onto the grass there. That lost control. Ended up trying to come back on into the path.
Oh!
And Baldwin!
Oh, straight in the middle of the racing line. Watch out, Robbie Stableford manages to, to be fair, I'll say to Baldwin, that was good to instantly be like, okay, just drive forward. And I don't believe in the commentator's curse, but mate, you just absolutely did Veloce there, guaranteeing a top 10 finish within this race. That is a note out of 10.
Hang on. I did say if they were still running. I did say if they didn't take themselves out there. Come on, that's my get out of jail free cards on that one. But oh man, that is on the first lap as well, right out of that corner.
That's rough.
And the thing is, it's so easy to do, isn't it? You just, you've put a little bit of the weight wrong on the car, and how have we got 5 Mercs in the top 10?
Because everyone else crashed, unfortunately. That is how it goes. That crash, that's going to take a lot of looking at over race control, because I will say it happened at probably the worst time. It was going over the crest, so those coming up behind, I did scream arca brakes at the top of my voice, but that, in saying, for anyone who doesn't know, is basically code for they didn't brake. It is quite easy, obviously, going over the crest. It can be blind on entry. You just see sort of smoke, and obviously sim racers can keep their foot in. Yellow flag means go faster, and it just built. But yeah, they need to work out what happened up towards the front, because that was less than pretty, I think, is the only way we can put it.
Well, we've had another massive incident coming out of Forest Elbow on a straight again. Chris Sever and Maximilian Walmuth getting involved in that one. At least 6-7 cars all involved in that incident there. But yeah, look, that wasn't their finest moment. And for 95% of those involved, what else can they do? They're piling on the accelerator on a straight. The last thing they expect is a car to come veering straight across them as well. It's and like I say, it would be great if we can jump to replays at some point. But for me, I think Robbie Stapleford is going to get absolutely pasted by race control for that. From what I remember, and again, Lewis, correct me if I'm misremembering it, but from what I remember, he was so focused on trying to recover after, which was an amazing recovery, by the way, like how he gathered that back up after being tagged. But there was a car coming up on his left-hand side to try and pass him. He moved over to the left to stop that overtake happening and forced the car while it was alongside him onto the grass. That car then veered back onto the track and caused absolute mayhem behind. And it's just an accident that really didn't need to happen. However, I say that, right, I'm putting hand on heart, that would absolutely be me causing that if that was me.
I think we need to take a second look at it. Of course, broadcast director Mike Yao will be working on that. There is a lot to go through from their end, so we'll be patient in the waiting of that one, as Nick Hoban was closing in on Abelard. Now, I don't know if this is just a standard thing, or if it's just because they've set... No, they have set at the exact same time. Sholobov and Nick Hoban. I've never seen that before. 2 purple times on our tower. They've both set exactly the same lap time, a 201.645. It's given both the fastest lap of the race, which I think is fair enough, as Nick Hoban sets his sights on Abelard for that race lead. These two looking for their first victory in the Coach Dave Super Sprint, and they are fighting hard for it.
Certainly are. Vyacheslav Abelard, though, up in the lead there. Not getting to streak away as much as I thought he would like to, as Nick Hoban trying to catch up there on the back in that 2-2-1, but I mean, obviously, RHG Esports trying their best to make this work, but I'm looking at Darren Cormack, Oleg Zolopov, Mikhail hang on, what? Mikhail Statsenko up there from 5th position.
Did you see that moment from Abelard?
I did. I was trying to just hold my breath, because I'm the worst for like screaming or making really bizarre noises.
I think we should scream.
Yeah, just randomly blow the speakers or earphones of our viewers out there. But no, that's the thing, and this is going back to the point that I made before the race actually begins. I was saying Bathurst is a track that you can be very, very comfortable at, and then for no reason, lap number 2 or lap number 22, suddenly you're coming through one of the corners, and then for no reason, bang, you're off into the wall.
I mean, the crash from Baldwin was, like you said at the time, it was a very easy one to do. You're on cold trot tyres, you're in a McLaren, which, let's be honest, isn't exactly the most joyous car to throw over the curb, and you've just touched the curb on the exit of McPhillamy. It's a recipe for disaster, and one which doesn't really tend to end well. It's not as far, they're racing on the very limit. You're obscured a little bit on your turning point from the car ahead. You're kind of maybe anticipating the grip to be slightly higher than it was, and that's how it went. And I kind of think less so to Abelad's there, because obviously he's got no obstruction ahead of him, but still maybe just pushing it a little bit too hard and just touching that curb. Got away with it there, and I think that might be a bit of a wake-up call. You're absolutely right, by the way, on Stutsenko, and that Yazhi Pirelli car was a bit critical of them after a fairly poor qualifying, but basically kept it on the right-hand side whilst everything was happening on the left-hand side of the mountain straight. And as all of it kicked off, kept his foot in and just avoided all of it.
And that's exactly what you have to try and do. We'd all like to think that that's exactly what we would do in that position, with the ninja reflexes and, you know, everything almost in bullet time, and we're weaving through the smoke and the car's cold trickle Days of Thunder style. But in reality, what happens is you're straight into a car in front, and that's pretty much your day done. That's your race done and dusted. But we've got at least 10 cars that avoided all of that, and that does give us still a very, very interesting dynamic to this championship.
I cannot believe how many cars. We've commentated on quite a few races here in the SimGrid over our years. To be fair, the Donington Park one at the start of, I'm pretty sure that was the VCO World Cup, might have been the best of British. I don't fully remember. That was a monster crash, but that one does very much top the old tree there. It just happens. I think it was Donington Park, though. I think it might be, yes. Well, we'll have to wait and see. Either way, Abelard is leading the way with Nick Hoban and Dara McCormack behind. We focus back on Herbenau in that GTWR RHG Academy with the Sim Racing Masterclass directly ahead.
Yep, 50 minutes left to go in this race, and I mean, I get the feeling that this top 10 are going to be always breathing a sigh of relief after that start line, or that first lap incident early on. It's it's a difficult one to see. Of course, we've got all the YouTube game developers out in force as well, what they would like to see and what they would do differently. And, well, you know, it would be wonderful if we had different things, but then it'd also be wonderful if we didn't have a 20-car pile-up on the first lap of the race. I think that would be the easier problem to solve than things like trying to add in a race control or a virtual safety car or whatever. Because I've seen it, and I think it was on another platform where, it was another platform that shall remain nameless, where it was a league race and somebody was actually controlling the safety car, and they managed to bin it coming out of that first corner there. It was actually at Bathurst, and they stacked it into the wall when they were bringing the car out for a safety car period. And if anything, I think there's nothing that can actually make you as a commentator laugh more heartily or deeper than seeing someone else's misfortune like that. It was On
another championship elsewhere, unfortunately, Mike Yao was doing the broadcasting on this, and it was at Spa. It was an endurance race at Spa, and the safety car was out. It was a manual safety car, so it was driven by an actual person. And when they called the safety car back in, this is like quite late in the race, and it came through Blanchimont, and it crashed. And unfortunately, I was off the broadcast at the time. I hand over to the other commentators and stuff, but I was still sort of sat there watching and talking to Mike and sort of passing on some information about when safety cars and stuff are coming out and all that. And it crashed. And rather than actually saying the car's crashed, I just burst out laughing, like full on 110%, as if I was watching an episode of my favourite comedy show. I was honestly on the floor.
It's funny, right? We work so hard, right, as commentators and as the production team and everything like that, right? We work so hard to to try and do our bit to help raise the profile and make this a more credible and a more professional form of entertainment. But we're still human at the end of the day, and stuff like that is our Achilles heel, that reaches right into that little bad bit, like those bits, the forums on Reddit that we go on, and you watch those videos, you're just like, yeah, that is outrageously funny, and you can't help it. Those things are genuinely funny. But then, as a professional, you're obviously immediately then strikes in. You're like, yes, well, and you have to try and take a step back from it as well.
I don't think I'm ever professional on broadcaster. Either way, making some progress. And actually, making progress in Griffin's Bend. Jonas Sovalainen in the Grippax Engineering has got past the number 44, the Jardier Community Car, which, of course, a race winner in the season already. But they do have, as you can see, a 15-second time penalty. The number 44, the 81, and unfortunately, the Veloce car that we don't have anymore. All 15-second time penalties again for the breaching of the licence points. So that's why they'll be, when they come in to make their pit stop, they will be stationary for 15 seconds longer. It's not they have to come in and serve a 15-second stop and go and just that and then move on. They do get to serve it with the pit stop. That's why it's been set so early. They'll just serve it when they come in for their pit stops roughly halfway through this race when that pit window opens. But either way, I think there has been an issue behind, because that number 44 was nowhere to be seen as we were focusing on that Grippax Engineering car, and it wasn't that far behind when they started going over the top of the mountain.
And yet here we are with the almost like a little mini Bentley train right there, with the 44, the 486 and the 81 of Mikowski, Sarosi and Sherbatinsky as well. Just looking at the championship and what that actually does, it gives the 41, who's currently down in 4th position, some healthy points. But Mikhail Statsenko as well, currently 3rd place in the championship, they'll get even more points than that. But the 75 and the 80, it's the 75 of Yassir Richard Bale, it's not going to really work out for them. But Darren McCormack, I think, will be in a very strong position for the rest of the championship. In fact, to the point, he could come out of this in a very I don't want to say uncatchable position, because obviously with another couple of rounds left to go, another couple of races left to go, it's still up in the air. But I think of all those down that have been caught out by that first lap, how do you come back from that? I know we've got the reverse grid, but they'll be absolutely raging at having to sit out for the best part of 55 minutes.
It's a long time, like you said, to sit on the sidelines and watch what could be a very tight battle here for the race lead. SMP are also closing in ever so slightly, but this three-way fight, I've got to say, Abelad's, a couple of times I've seen it, Griffin's Bend on this lap, just running a little bit wide onto that curb, looking a little bit dicey, shall I say. The car doesn't look fully 110% glued to the racetrack in comparison to the R8G car that's looking straight down the inside, going to the chase. There's a big commitment down the inside. Nick Hoban dives it in, a little bit of contact between the two, pushes Abelad's wide and gets the position done. Did he give enough room though? That's the question. And Darren McCormack, that's a little bit of a reactionary move though, straight over the pit lane entrance, and Darren McCormack straight down the inside of Abelad's, did not get that position done, was pushed over that entrance to the pit road, and it is absolutely fourth for the race lead now as Jolobov joins the fight in that SMP car. What do you make of that move from Nick Hoban?
Well, I think that was a clean, fair move from Hoban. He did force that car wide, but there was still room for the two wheels on the circuit there, and a little bit more. But I think Abeladze trying to keep the foot in, trying to keep that car going round, that unsettled the car. That was what eventually allowed Hoban to just break off away. And that move to block Darren McCormack into pit lane, yeah, that is not good at all. That shows just how much that car is absolutely rattled right now.
Well, the thing with that kind of move, it's just a little bit... You know me, I don't like reactionary defending that's that aggressive. I don't like reactionary defending at all. I'd say with that one over the pit lane, you could kind of argue they both sort of went at the same time. At least from the angle that we saw, they both sort of went over that way, and so in that sense, it's less of a reactionary. It's just coincidental that they both were making the same move at the same time over to the left-hand side of the track. But when you've got a car that's been pushed over there, you kind of, if it's there, you've got to give it room. But That one is not for me. That is for race control. We always say that here, and race control have been very, very busy indeed. The incidents on lap 1 involving multiple cars will be investigated post-race. So they will go over it with a fine-tooth comb, where they're not having to sort of deal with it in the time of the race, so they can focus on some other instances, of which there are a fair few, which I think is probably the right call.
I think it is, because look, let's face it, that is going to have to take 20-25 minutes to go through the entirety. And yeah, it makes sense. Let it all calm down, have a look at it later, and just pick it out bit by bit. But we're seeing Ivan Shermatinsky here onto the back of the Bentley train right now, on the back of that number 44 Jardier Community car just now of Miskowski. Again, just it shows you how important getting the tow is here. But the McLaren here on the straight should have the run down. Consider it's also got a little bit of a tow from the Bentley, so the Bentley just doesn't seem to have that straight line advantage, and if anything, actually, it's the McLaren that looks like it's a little bit more dangerous.
Yeah, the McLaren is one that is a lap down, so just trying to jump out of the way. It's one of the TF Racing cars, so hopefully we'll jump out, but it's delayed a little bit, the Jardier Community car, and there might well have been a move in there, but Jolobov is trying to attack Dara McCormack for that third spot. McCormack set the fastest lap of the race. I'm surprised that Senko's not actually made more progress. I was expecting a little bit more, but obviously when they're sort of dishing out these times, they're all very close. And kind of going to your point about how hard the tyres are and how hard the Merc is on its tyres, kind of makes sense that they'll play the long game here, sort of underdrive, especially, you kind of want to get in that driving style, which you will need it for that second race, where they're not allowed to change tyres, they're not allowed to refuel. It's just this race where they have to do it. Obviously trying to make the two races different, maybe just trying to play the long game a little bit.
I think that's it, and what you've got to remember is as well, there's another 40 minutes of this. They've already taken a heck of a chunk of life out of these tyres already, and what they don't want is they don't want to give their second driver that's going to be jumping in the anything less than 100% confidence in the car that they've got. If you're on dodgy, chewed up tyres, you're not going to feel as comfortable and as fast going through the likes of Griffin's Bends and going through the cutting as you are with this fresh set that the first cars had. So again, you could see a lot of positions changing in the second half of this race, depending on how well they've looked after these tyres here, Lewis.
Well, the 154 of Alexander Herbenau has been into the pit lane. That's the GTWR R8G Academy that he's sharing with Chris Hartveld. Not 100% sure as to why that car is in the pit lane. We are not in the pit window, so I'm going to assume there was an incident of some description. But we're not in the pit window, so any pit stops at this point do not account for the one required stop. It must be done within that 10-minute window halfway through the race. There is the TF Racing car just trying to get past some of the contenders a bit further down, although I think this is where it's quite hard to tell. I'm pretty sure it is some lapped traffic for him, although it might be...
No, is that not Shermatinsky and Mikowski that he's just overtaking? But he is a lap down, it is.
Oh yeah, what has happened to that?
Yeah, so no, it's they're still a lap up, but he's obviously just got the pace that he's able to unlap himself. Although it's not really done much use. But so they're still down in 12th and 13th position. But that must be a bit frustrating watching that McLaren just absolutely tear away from you, and he's a lap down.
Yeah, apologies. Yeah, it's just the idea of 20th and being a lap down is a bit of a bit hard on the mind, as Sorosi does lose a position there to Shermatinsky, who's got down the inside in that number 81. It's a bit hard to follow in that sense, just based on the fact of it really puts into perspective how many cars have had issues early doors in this race. If 20th is already a lap down on the likes towards the back of the top 10, who are already miles off of the race lead, yeah, like I say, it really does put it into perspective. By the way, the incident between car 80 and car 41, obviously car 80 being the Williams Esports and the 41 being that Simware Pro by Vides car, it is a final warning to car 41 for blocking. That was obviously for the run down into the final corner at Murray's for that aggressive defence that pushed Dara McCormack over the pit lane entry, which I think is fair enough to give that a good warning.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the only thing that they could do realistically on that one. It looked pretty sketchy when we saw it, as we see confirmation of that final warning coming through. We saw what we saw, but again, it's you get to the point, Lewis, isn't it, where you don't know if you can trust what you saw is what you saw, or whether the context. And that's again confirmation of the 15-second time penalties for the multiple excursions of the breaking the licence points. But yeah, you think you see what you saw, but again, you don't know if it's the camera angles or if it's it looks completely different. We've certainly seen it. I've certainly seen it many times where we have an incident and I'm like, oh my god, that was terrible, and you see the replay and you're like, well, actually, I have to say, yeah, that was my bad on that one, because it wasn't actually what I thought it was in the first place at all.
It's like I say, things look different when you see it from other angles and with context as well, and also understanding of what is going to happen. Kind of like, see a big crash, and when you know there's a big crash coming, you kind of start seeing people's reactions differently and being like, right, okay, so he probably wouldn't have been able to see that. They were in the middle of the pack, so it's kind of like this. All those kind of things are very interesting, and it's why race control is such a hard task. And I will say, a thankless one as well, because I did see quite a few people being not so nice towards race control, and regardless of whether you think the decision is right or wrong, you have to respect race control. Like that's the thing with racing, with all forms of racing, whether it's sim or real, or whether you're doing karting or whatever. Race control is the law, and if you don't like it, that's fair enough, but don't race. Like, that's about as simple as it would get. You've kind of got to accept that if race control have given you a penalty, it's because in their eyes you've done something wrong. If you want to argue it in a mature way with evidence, rather than throwing your toys out of the pram, which I did see a few people in that vein, more so, is the battle for 9th position. Killian Ryan meaning with Jonas Savalainen direct behind. Of course, if you were Savalainen, I mean, obviously you want to make the move up anyway, and this is thinking 37 minutes down the road, which is a very long time to be doing so, even this early stage of the day. But this is essentially the battle for the reverse grid pole, because it is 10th place, and so I'd probably be in 10th.
Well, yeah, because I mean, when you think about it, Killian Ryan Meenan is 24 seconds behind the rest of that pack there, so there's not a chance in hell that Savalainen will be able to get anything more if he gets past here. But otherwise, why would he be so close if he's not going to be making a move here? He could always be trolling Killian Ryan Meenan, just trying to put him off and distract him, and just trying to make a nuisance there. But as racing drivers, as sim racing drivers, they're always going to try and get one up. They're always going to try and get that position wherever they can. It's I think it's like a natural reaction that we have. We just want to beat whatever car that is in front of us. It could be a lap car for all we care. We still just want to get past it.
Yeah, I mean, there is kind of a thing as well about sitting this close, is that rather than actually trying to go for a move, you're kind of sat there being like, look, if you drop it, I'll still take the place, but I'm going to sort of sit here and maybe not go for anything. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully we don't get that ridiculous battle that we had at the end of the SimGrid VCO World Cup Bathurst 12 hour, where the battle for 15th place was, who wanted to finish. They were fighting over who was finishing 16th. And they were crawling across the line between the BMW G2 Esports, and it was, I can't remember what team name they were at that point. The Swimwear.pro, but I can't remember what team name they were that weekend. I think it's Love Sport Roseneth. Yeah, Savalainen done it.
Yeah, that was it. Great move there from Savalainen up the inside there. Immediately, I had the flash of what that team name was. Was it not Lada Sport Rosneft?
Lada Sport Rosneft Aston Martin. Yeah, no, very catchy title. But yes, they were the ones that were fighting over 16th place, and it was pretty embarrassing. So hopefully we don't get that. I doubt we will. Not between these two, surely.
Just noticing as well, though, finally pit window is open, so the cars and drivers have now got 10 minutes in which they can pick their appropriate time. While we've been watching this as well, I've also just realised, that kind of escapes you while you're watching all the other battles. We've still got the top 4 cars separated by 2 seconds. That is craziness. And when you consider the different pit stop strategies that are coming in, you've got Mikhail Statsenko in 5th, Robbie Stapleford in 6th position. They're all within like 15 seconds up to about 7th place. Yeah, it's still way too close to call right now.
It's gonna, like I say, it's very tight up at the top end, so it kind of makes sense that we're going to see something interesting through this pit window sequence. But I just don't really know which team is holding the advantage. Look at those sectors coming across the line. Nick Hoban, Abeladze, Dara and McCormack all separated by, to be honest, 2/10. Well, with Sholobov as well. I don't know what's happening up towards the front. I'd quite like to go and see that, but the top 4 separated by less than half a second across the line. What's happening there?
Getting a little bit fighty up at the front there. Abeladze, I think, fancies a go. I wonder if Abeladze's had a go at Hoban. Zolobov into the pits there. It's stretched back out again now, back to about 0.8 of a second, but yeah, I wonder if Abeladze has either had a go at Hoban and it's drawn down.
Well, like I say, I'm not necessarily sure as to how that one's going to be, but either way, Sholobov has wants no part in this anymore, as entering the pit lane. Same with Robbie Stableford, Shematinsky obviously serving that time penalty as well. Machkovsky, Bischoff, Durkop, Rampazzo also into the pit lane, all to serve their required pit stop around here. But the likes of Nick Hoban, Abeladze and Dara McCormack and Mikhail Statsenko, they're more than happy to sort of sit out there at the moment.
Well, that's certainly what we're going to see. Just watch it as well, as we've got a brand new timing link. So make sure to check that one out. Hit that one up in the YouTube chat. There we go. So while our race director was sorting that out for you guys, now we get to go to the battle at the front. Now this has completely transformed then. So Nick Hoban then, not really stretching away, and Abeladze now smells blood. I wonder if it's these lighter cars, if they're feeling a little bit more racy, or they're wanting to try and up the pace given that they're going to be coming into the pit. But Abeladze definitely smells blood in the water here, but so does Dara McCormack. He's right behind as well, but it's all eyes on that 41 SimGrid.pro by Vides. And of course, when they come into the pit, it's going to be none other than big bad Igor Ogorodnikov going to be jumping into that car. That's when things are going to get real.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, because like we know how fast Ogorodnikov is. Obviously Tinko van der Velde as well for the Williams eSports team. That car has had more podiums than anyone else this season. I think it was diving into the pit lane was Dara McCormack there, just eyed it up. Oh, there was a little bit of a moment down into the final corner between the top 2, and that did actually slow down Abeladze there, so had to drop off the rear end of the race leader. I will say, the SimGrid.pro by Vides car that we're focused on now, the number 41, does look a lot more comfortable in second position following than they did leading in the first sort of 10-15 minutes of this race. It seems like Abeladze doesn't really like setting the pace, likes following the pace of someone else.
Well, that's exactly it, and I think that when we'll see that come out is when the cars are all bunched up together, because while they're all on different strategies here as well, Lewis, you'll see the cars then coming out into the middle of cars that maybe haven't pitted, maybe slower cars that they're not used to being mixed in with, and that can cause havoc to the strategy, because where you're maybe up 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds on the racetrack, suddenly you can completely lose all of that time there.
Well, we'll keep our eye on Abeladze, who's, like you say, now dropped off to around about a second off of the rear end of Hoban. I'd expect that these two will be in the pit lane this time by. Kind of got to make that reaction with McCormack and that coming out of the pit lane. Obviously on fresher tyres, you've got to react, especially in these kind of conditions where the tyre differential does make a large difference. In the second race, maybe less so. The overcut tends to work a little bit more in the second race, courtesy of not changing tyres. Well, you're not really adding fuel either, but still the overcut when you're in the rhythm, especially around a second like this, kind of makes sense. A 5-second time penalty, though, to Abeladze. Not 100% sure what that one's about.
Well, we'll have to keep an eye out on that one. So, not seeing anything in the penalties about that one. So maybe that is, well, it can't be an automatic one because that's been 5 seconds.
Yeah,
that's a very strange one as well. So
I'm just going to assume we haven't had the note through from race control, but it has come from them. It's the only thing that would make sense in my book.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. We'll wait and see. But unless there maybe was contact in that final corner, but I think that's it's way too soon after that for a penalty to have been given. So yeah, weird one. Unless it's maybe an instant that we didn't see. Remember when they were all bunched up? We'll keep an eye on. But half an hour left to go in this race. Nick Hubin is going to be very happy that he is in the lead, isn't he? Against Vyacheslav Abelads. But we've now get to the point where we've got about 8 cars in the top 20 that have swapped over the driver. Sven Hetic and Jonas Salvlainen into the pits as well. So realistically, you'd think that it has to be into the pits at the end of this lap here.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I think with the time left, they've really kind of got to. Otherwise, they're just pushing the time a little bit too much. I'm surprised they didn't come in on the last lap to go and close off the Williams Esports and that lot. Sven Hetic, by the way, has come into the pit lane. Hasn't updated. He'll be moving down behind the likes of Merdasov. And to be fair, he'll be behind even Isaac Price, who's jumped in behind the BMW G2 Esports. That's where he should be in the running order. We'll say the SMP car, though, has jumped Williams Esports to the tune of around about a second in 7th position as Merdasov has jumped behind the wheel from his teammate Tinko van der Velde. Of course, Sholomov being his teammate, Tinko van der Velde taking over from Dara McCormack. But this is going to be a slow stop from the SimWed.pro by Vides because they're going to have to take that 5-second time penalty now, which will drop them obviously right down the order. Probably drop that actually behind, maybe even Malinovsky.
That
not pitting
really,
yet. Oh no,
really could be the case there. Let's have a look here. As the cars making their way into to pit lane, and there we go. Oh. So Vyacheslav Abelads into pit lane, and yeah, this is starting to get a little bit squeaky bum time. 2 minutes left to go in the pit window here, and yeah, here we go. That
was a little bit of I'm going to say a dicey pit entry from Abelads. Kind of overcooked it a little bit, and I think he might have just bumped the wall slightly. It's quite a tricky pit lane entry with the sort of chicane that's down there as well. It's not exactly the easiest one known to mankind when it comes to rolling your way through down and slowing it down to pit lane speed. Also, pit lane speed is very low around here. Merdasov, who's currently on screen, the focus of our attention, the SMP Racing Esports car. You can see they're around about a second and a half to Tinko van der Velde, who at the moment they're 5th and 6th. We'll go with that, but we know they're going to be battling probably 2nd, 3rd, maybe 3rd, 4th. We'll have to wait and see. I think it's going to be 2nd and 3rd, of course, with the penalties going away of the SimWed.pro. There it is, 2nd position. Where is the R8G car, and is the 919 going to try and take the lead? If they win this race, they would become back-to-back winners because they did win the second race at your favourite track and your favourite round of this championship so far at Barcelona. I know you love it. Would be a bit of a shock to see them.
Why?
It's just funny.
You bring that up. It's just. I think what we are going to have to explain to our viewers is that we might start seeing a couple of little oddities appearing on screen. We might start seeing a little bit of the cars jerking around a little bit more than we usually would. Now, for those of you that have been watching some of the previous ACC streams, you'll have seen previous races having a bit of a similar issue here. So we'll stay with the footage as long as we actually can. Seems to easing itself off actually quite a lot as we go on here, but. Igor Murdasov there, though, chasing down Luke Whitehead out of the pit lane there, 0.6 of a second, and yeah, Luke Whitehead under all sorts of attack here. This is going to be a huge move going into to the end of the corner.
This is going to be, like I say, very much a heart-racing moment for Murdasov, for White as well. The hearts will be racing, and I think we're in for a little bit of a battle. We'll have to wait and see how things unfold and place ourselves as to where things are going to go.
Well, I think from what we're hearing, we're about to get the red flag So it's going to be a red flag onto the race for these server interruptions that we're getting. I think that's the only fair way they can do it, Lewis. With these unstable conditions, you have to give everybody a fair chance.
Unfortunately, these are some of the things in sim racing. We have issues like this. Of course, the issues that we're getting here on ACC at the moment are a little bit out of the ordinary, and that is far be it from me to sort of explain what's going on, because I'll be honest, I know how to turn my computer on, and that's about as far as it goes, really, when it comes to my level of tech support. But these kind of things happen. So it's a shame for not only us in the broadcast booth and for everyone watching, but obviously the competitors out there that were racing. That looked like it was going to turn into a thrilling race, and unfortunately we've been robbed of that a bit. However, I guess some will think thankfully of it on how the race start was, which, let's be honest, maybe it was a race against it, maybe it was just one of those things and it just spiraled out of effect, but either way it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, look, it's very, very unfortunate. I think we'll get more context of this, given that it seems like it's a repeating occurrence, not just with us, over other servers, over other communities, over other races. It does seem to be some sort of an issue that's affecting all of the drivers. So if you're looking at the left-hand side, you can see the connection meters, and steadily through the race. So it didn't start immediately, but it was in the last 10 minutes you could see those meters going up and up and up and up. And obviously we can discuss and have opinions on what we think it is, but either way, at the end of the day, it still leaves us without our race being affected.
Well, I think that's just kind of how some of these things go. We'll have to wait and see, basically what the future holds of this. I'm going to say, bearing in mind how the issues have been, and the known issues that we've had the last week or so, I've got to thank all of our drivers for actually showing up and sort of using this as a bit of a test bed to see if there are ways that we can affect things and affect change and make a good evening's race. And they've still given us their time. Thank you as well for giving us your time as well. Unfortunately, based on those issues, we will call it here. Keep your eye on all things social media with the SimGrid and Coach Dave as well to see basically where things are going to go. We'll hopefully be back in a couple of weeks' time. I have to wait and see on that one. But until then, never mind. We will actually hear from, I think we did hear the voice of Michael Hamlet a bit earlier on in the broadcast. Not sure how much intent there was in it. Let's listen to Michael Hamlet.
Hi David, hi Lewis, hello all our viewers on YouTube. Unfortunately, we've had to red flag the race, not only unfortunately in our pro split, but also in the other two splits as well. We had two races scheduled for this evening, of course. However, this server issue, which we know what this is. Unfortunately, it will be something that cannot be resolved tonight. Therefore, this race, as well as race 2, will have to be null and voided and rescheduled for an alternative date. So that, unfortunately, is the reality of the situation that we have this evening. We hoped we wouldn't be affected by this. We took the brave call to go ahead and see what happens, but unfortunately, it has affected us. So it will be null and void, another void event, and rescheduled for an alternative date.
Well, there we go. That's that then. I'm still, before we fully wrap up, I'm still going to ask for your final opinions, David.
Yeah, look, what we had was a brilliant race. I've got to be honest, I feel a little bit cheated by that. Not by the decision that was made, but by the fact that we had to make that decision. We were building up to a fantastic climax to that first race. Obviously, we had that horrific lap 1 incident. It is what it is. We'll come back in a couple of weeks' time, or whenever we get this rescheduled. We will get this race done, and we will get this championship back on. It's a very unfortunate side to esports. Hopefully we get the issue resolved very, very quickly. But yeah, we just have to thank everyone for their patience, giving us the chance to give it a go. We'll just have to see what can happen next time.
Indeed, we will. We'll hopefully return on April the 28th for what would have been our season finale races 9 and 10. We'll have to wait and see how these ones filter into it. Of course, some of the teams are going to leave this very sad. Some of the teams are going to leave this with a bit of a breath of relief. Unfortunately, though, for us, it is time to end, and we'll hopefully see you in a couple of weeks. Until then, though, bye-bye.